Hi, I'm Nathan James Larsen. I'm a producer and self-producing artist, and in this video I want to help you learn how to produce killer songs every time. And I'm going to do this not by talking about hypotheticals or tips or tricks, but instead breaking down a real release from my own artist project so you can see a real life example. If you want me to turn this into a regular series, definitely let me know in the comments down below, but buckle in because we are not going to be shallow in this. I'm going to be pulling the entire curtain back full stop to give you as much value as I possibly can. So if you don't have a bit of time or patience, you can go watch some Fail Army instead. What I'm going to be showing you is my song that just came out. It's called No Stranger to the Dark. So if you want to listen start to finish on the song, you can stream it where you listen to music, but we're going to be diving deep into the session itself. So let's hop into Logic and let's show you. So I have the session open here and I just want to show you what it is that we're looking at in the first place. So all of this right here, these are all vocals, which I have broken down into track stacks. Don't worry, we're taking a look at all of this. There's a lot of vocals, as you can see. And then in here we have our instrumentals. So we have all of our keyboard stuff. Actually, this is just piano. I did in fact record the live piano behind me. These are all the synth elements and orchestra elements right in here. This is our bass elements. And then we have finally our drums. So when it's all said and done, we have, 140 tracks in here, but that is including some buses and stuff like that as well. And this is the actual mix window here. So as you can see, a bunch of these tracks literally don't have any plugins on them at all. There's very little happening except for the vocals. There's a lot on the vocals. The very first thing I want to talk about is when you are producing a song, regardless of the genre, regardless of what it is that you're creating, you need to really take a zoomed out approach first and foremost, and you need to look at what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the song to begin with. And for me, I like thinking about arrangement, and when I like thinking about the composing side of producing a song, in other words, putting the actual instruments into the song, I really like to think and approach it through the perspective of development. I want it so that when you start listening to the song, some idea or some concept is being introduced to you that you are then going to develop through the entirety of the song. Which means that in order to develop something, things cannot just stay the same. So let's just go ahead and listen to the very beginning. I'm just going to show you the very start of the song going into the first chorus, which is about to here, and then we'll stop. And I really want to talk about the structural side of this because this is extremely important if you want to create great music. So here we go.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise. Don't wanna stand up and fight, so you wear your disguise. Oh, it makes me cynical, and it's so typical. You try to fight behind my back, you try to stab me in the back. You try it like a sneak attack, you better now watch your back. I'll take a stand for the light, I get my hands in the dirt. I'm no stranger to the...
So that is the first entire verse leading into the chorus. What I think is extremely important to talk about is how even in a single verse, there's actual development taking place. This is not just like, hey, here's a cool piano sound and then maybe some pizzicato strings and whatever. And it's not just developing purely from an instrumental standpoint, but it's also developing from a lyrical and from a melodic standpoint as well. If we actually were to look at this and break it down, we really have one musical concept that takes up 4 bars, another musical concept that takes up another 4 bars, and then another shorter little sentence, if you want to call it that, which is 2 bars only. And we'll call that like an extremely short pre-chorus, I guess you could say. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. So if we look at the very beginning here, and we're thinking purely about the melody itself and the lyrics itself. Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise. That's an idea right there, right? And then that idea gets repeated in the second half of this 4-bar structure. So if you think about song structure, again, hang with me. This is very, very important. We have 2 bars, which introduces the lyrical content, what it is that we're singing about, but more importantly, the thing that people are actually going to remember is the actual melody itself. Da 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 da. Right? That's idea number 1. That idea is then repeated in the second half of this 4-bar structure. So when you're thinking about a 4-bar chord progression, we have our progression like this, but there's actually 2 separate pieces inside of this, 2 concepts inside of this that are happening. You have melody 1, and then melody 1 is repeated again. So this 4-bar structure becomes idea 1. Then the second 4 bars actually is melodically something different. So let me just show you what I'm talking about here.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise.
Okay, so that's idea 1. Da 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 da, and then I do it again.
Don't wanna stand up and fight, so you wear your disguise.
And then we go somewhere different. Oh, it makes me cynical. And the melody literally changes here, right? The melody goes somewhere completely different. And this would be verse 1B. So this is idea 2 or B if we want to think about it that way.
Oh, it makes me cynical, and it's so typical. You try to fight behind my back, you try to stab me.
And this is different again too. So idea B actually has kind of two separate musical ideas within it as well. What on earth does this have to do with anything? Well, it has a lot to do with how we're going to go about instrumentally producing something. So if we just take a look at the instrumental alone, and now that you're thinking about, okay, you've got two ideas that are happening in these 4-bar structures. You have a 4-bar structure here with one musical idea, and then you have another 4-bar structure over here that has a completely separate musical idea. Now we need to figure out, how do we instrumentally do this? So that's idea 1. And notice the development that's taking place here. The melody is going to go somewhere different, but the instrumental also needs to carry along with it. Like, hey, we're going to go somewhere different here. I'm talking about being cynical. And so when I'm talking about being cynical, we want to emphasize that instrumentally. We want to make sure that what we are doing with the actual music itself is helping with that. And so then we all of a sudden add this. So next thing you know, we're adding like a pad here, right? We've got some eerie strings. And then I also add in some effects here, some other strings in here that are giving that sense of cynicism, that sense of creepiness, right? We also introduce our first bass element here, which then also introduces our first drum hit. And this is what is this doing? This is ultimately developing a concept. So you have to think about it from the listener's perspective, and as musicians and as artists and producers, we actually need to think about, how is our listener going to experience something? We begin with this piano, we begin with this melody. We're talking about like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise, right? And so you're setting up the stage for what is about to happen in the song. And you want to keep putting in nuggets, keep sprinkling things in that keep your audience thinking, man, where are we going with this? And this doesn't have to be something so theatrical as this, because sometimes your song might not need to be as theatrical as this. And I don't mean theatrical stylistically, I'm just talking about the actual big picture of what you're doing. It doesn't need to be so grandiose. The instrumental production on this is incredibly simple. We have piano, just plucking out some chords pretty much. And then we've got these 3 elements in here, which are basically doing the strings to add a little bit of rhythm and then also add a little bit of contrast to the piano. This is also adding some texture to this. The piano obviously has one particular type of texture, whereas strings have a completely different type of texture. You put these together and they blend very well. So on the downbeat of every bar, we're getting that nice little brum, brum, right? And this is helping us kind of push us along with every single bar, that there is something musically happening. If we didn't have these little chord hits happening in the strings, this would sound significantly less interesting. Let me put the vocals in here to just show you what this would sound like without those.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise. Don't wanna stand up and fight.
Do you see how much it is that these literally, it's like one thing, right? It's 2 tracks, but they're essentially doing the same thing. You take those away, instantly it sounds different. You put them back in and it makes a massive difference.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise. Don't wanna stand up and fight, so you wear your disguise.
There you go. This is talking about development. And I know that this is a little bit of a big picture thing. And this is so much more important than like, hey, what sounds did you use? And like, how did you get that sound? If you don't understand this, then the sounds you choose literally don't matter. And I think it's very important to also understand that you don't need to be just stuffing a bunch of stuff in to make something interesting. This is very minimalist in a lot of ways. 1, 2, 3 string tracks, the piano, and the vocals. That's it at the beginning. Then we add some of these pads in here. We're adding some of these strings in here. So if we just take a listen in the second half of this verse to more of these synth elements and the string elements here, just this is what it sounds like. makes a really significant difference, even though all of these elements are textural elements that are really relatively strategic, right? So if we take any of these elements out, let's take these violin effects out that are kind of doing more of this pitch wavering, it really takes away something from the sound itself. Put it back in. This is one of the most important things you need to understand, is that really good productions actually think about development of ideas more than they're thinking about, ooh, what's this little tip and trick? What's this little hack? It actually has so much more to do with intelligent composition, intelligent arrangement, in making moves with intent and with purpose. Every single one of these tracks has a specific purpose. I'm never throwing things in just because. And you notice there's this bass hit here that happens, but it doesn't happen again until we hit the chorus. I'm actually intentionally holding things back. I'm almost doing it in such a way where I want my listener to think, I think something big is about to happen. I can feel some tension rising. I can feel these strings adding this element here that's pushing in a direction where I think something's gonna happen. I heard this really big, aggressive bass sound. I heard these really aggressive drums, right? Like in this moment here.
Oh, it makes me cynical.
We just heard bass, and we just heard this really epic hit on the drums, right? Which is like, ooh, what's this, right? But then for the next 6 bars, you don't ever get that again. And now you're left thinking, okay, we're actually going somewhere here. And that's exactly what happens. So good music is tension and release. Tension and release. We're starting somewhere, which is setting the stage. We're almost like priming the listener to hear what they're about to hear. We're immediately engaging them. We've got a couple sounds that are, strategically there to help push us into the next 4 bars, the next 4 bars. If we look at every single section of this song, virtually every 4 bars, something different happens. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about strategic music or developmental music. Before we even get into this chorus, I want to skip straight to verse 2, because now that verse 1 is fresh in your mind, let's take a listen to, okay, so where does verse 2 go? And I think it's going to surprise you how different verse 2 is.
You wear your face like a mask. Looks like you're running from your past. You try to hide in plain sight. What gives you the right? Try to hide your past life. You better run and hide. Oh.
Instrumentally, immediately it's different. The melody is very similar to verse 1, but the actual instrumental production is completely different. We're getting the same thing in the piano, which is like, hey, this is still the verse. You've heard this before, but then you're getting something completely different. Let's just listen to the instrumental. And I have a little bit of a correction to make. I said I was using the piano. Actually, that's not the piano doing those chords. That's actually this muted piano here that's happening. Which actually adds so much more of a shorter attack to it, which is such a difference from verse 1. It's like I'm hearing the same thing, I'm hearing the same rhythm, but the sound is different. It's still a piano, but there's something off about it. Like it doesn't really sound like a piano, and it's because it's a muted piano. It's more of like a plucked piano. And then this sound right here was actually literally me holding my finger on the string of the piano as I played it. And notice something else, something that isn't present. And again, intentional. This was on purpose. This is strategic. I am not using those same strings that I was using as we were in verse 1. We're not getting the rump happening in the pizzicato. And so as a result, it actually creates this other kind of tension, which is the tension of nothing being there. We've heard this before there were these pizzicato strings. Now, I want to be very clear. When someone's listening to this song, you might be thinking, they're not actually thinking any of this stuff, Nathan. Of course, they're not actually actively thinking about it. It's your job and it's my job as the producer to do things that they literally don't even know what it is that they are hearing, but it's more of like they can feel the change. And so by doing this, I'm actually presenting verse 2 in a way where it's like, you have heard this before, but you've also not heard this before because this is completely different. I just want to show you these 4 bars here and then the next 4 bars to even see how we go somewhere much further, somewhere very much different from verse 1 than we did before. Like listen to some of these sounds. This is where we start hitting here. That's the pre-chorus again, right? So what I'm trying to articulate here is that literally every single 4 bars, both in verse 1 and in verse 2, there is not a single 4-bar phrase that is identical to the other 4-bar phrase. I just don't do this. And this is something that you'll notice time and time again when you're listening to really top tier productions, is you'll notice that the developmental side of things is either every 4 bars or every 8 bars, depending on the tempo and depending on other elements of the song. We're trying to add new things. We're trying to do things. We're trying to develop other things. And so what we start here is a very empty start to this whole thing. The vocals are still singing, right? Still the vocals, but we're missing all of the low end. There's almost no low end. There's no bass. There's not even the strings in the low end of this.
You wear your face like a mask. Looks like you're running from your past. You try to hide in plain sight. What gives you the right? Try to hide your past life. You better run and hide.
And even think about the relationship between what the vocals are doing and what the instrumental is doing, how tied in together they are. It's like this, you wear your face like a mask, right? And what is the instrumental doing? It's kind of doing this thing that's like, okay, what is this? Where are we going here? This is different. Like, it's the same, but it's different. It's almost like I'm trying to put a mask on the instrumental itself to try to do something in a way that we're about to open this up here. It's about to reveal who this really is, right? And then once we actually get into this next half, the vocals change yet again. They open up again. They slow down the rhythm again. Something is different, and then the instrumental follows it.
I've been fighting on the right side, been tiptoeing the sidelines. A bit too close for comfort. I touch the darkness just to get it over.
Okay, and so I add in other plucked elements in here. I'm adding more plucks in here. I'm adding more elements in here that just help give a little bit more of this energy. Right? And then we also get for the first time we begin to actually really get some strings that are going a little bit more rhythmic. One of the biggest things in arrangement that you can understand is the utilization of different rhythmic textures and different patterns. And so what I'm doing here is I'm using some elements to create sustain. And typically these are higher elements that are doing this, and then I'm doing other elements that add a texture of rhythm. So these are polar opposites, sustain and lots of rhythm, right? So plucking something and having a versus the sustained elements, these contrast each other and they tend to pair very, very well together. And so this is helping fill out the sound. What I'm trying to do here is utilize all of these different rhythms in here between the piano and between some of these other kind of more textural sounds like this. Mix that with and the strings. But notice how empty that is if that's all we have. If that's the only thing that we have, we don't have these sustained elements. This actually is lacking some cohesion. It's lacking something to kind of like ground it, almost to kind of add like an umbrella to the sound. Well then, once we start adding these elements in here one at a time, you can start noticing how much this actually helps. All of a sudden, it's like this is like a blanket kind of covering the whole instrumental that's helping make it so it actually pushes forward with the rhythm, but the sustain is kind of helping us feel like there's some weight to it. And then finally, we're adding the bass and the drums. I'm gonna pair these together. The bass is happening only on the downbeats. So this is a bum, bum, right? So it's only on the downbeats. And think about it this way. If we just had a sustained bass the entire time, then it's like we've got this grounding, this very big grounding. And really instead what I wanted to do is like when I want that bass to hit, I want you to be like, ooh, that's good. And then it goes away. That's good. And then it goes away. And then all we have going on in the drums here is a kick drum and then this topper. And then occasionally we've got these kind of big booms and hits here. And by the way, if you want toppers like this, honestly, Damage, Evolve Mutations, Evolve 2, Arcade, those are all the best places to get stuff like this sound. Just adds such a cool texture to it. And then you put this all together and just think about if any single piece of this was not there, it just wouldn't work as well. So let's just listen to the instrumental only. Sustain. The rhythm. The kick. And then the pre-chorus, right? Which is like a short little 2-bar thing. It's almost like the chorus is about to happen. And a trick that I love doing, and you'll notice this over and over and over again in lots of records, is you put a soft moment right before a loud moment and it hits so much harder. So what happens? The bass goes away, the rhythm goes away, the drums go away, and now all we're left with is the sustain. Right? And then I use a little bit of a cool transitional element here. And then that goes into the chorus. Oh hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but I did want to let you know that just this week we launched my new updated version of Producer Accelerator. It's called PA 2.0. We added like over 60 lessons into the course, and because it's brand new, we're offering a huge discount. We changed our pricing structure to be $400 a year, but we are giving a crazy discount right now where you can get access to a lifetime membership, $400 for life. That means you pay for only 1 year and you get it for life. So if you use PA for life at checkout, you can get that discount. We are only doing this until June 5th, so literally only 2 weeks since we launched, which was like a few days ago. So you better jump in on that if you're interested. Okay, back to the video, bye. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about like vocal production and all this other stuff here as well. Okay, so let's actually get into the chorus. The chorus is, I love the chorus. The chorus is fun. Let's just go back to chorus number 1, now that we've kind of covered everything that's happening in the first verse. And what I want to show you is how all the choruses in this song, I'm trying to do things so that as the song progresses, you're kind of hearing each chorus a little bit different, and I'll show you how. So this is chorus 1. I'm going to start back in the pre-chorus so we can kind of get into it.
I'll take a stand for the light. I get my hands in the dirt. I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm no stranger to the dark. You wear your face.
And then we get into verse 2. Okay, there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens in this. I just want to play the instrumental by itself for you first, and then we'll kind of get into it. Okay, so obviously we got some cool moments here, right? And you can see here these chop moments where it's grayed out. Originally, I had not produced it in this way. Originally, I actually produced it where these chords held out a little bit, and then it occurred to me that, man, it would sound really cool if it's like, bah, and then kind of get sucked in. And so I actually just chopped up these audio bits, and then I just muted them out. And what you'll notice here is that the actual production itself on here is really simple. It's literally just these chords happening here. I'm gonna solo these out. Right, and so I'm just using a bunch of different elements, each kind of adding a little bit of different texture. So we've got some organ here. Strings, horns. So when's enough? How much is enough? I don't know. I mean, I kind of just did it till I felt like it was. I probably didn't need this much stuff, honestly. But they're all pretty much doing the same thing. And really what they're doing is they're just adding different textures. And as you can see here, I'm also panning some of these elements just to add a little bit of wideness. And this is helping those chords feel a little bit more wide. One other little trick is I'm typically not voicing these chords the same. So whatever the chord happens, I'm not using the exact same 3 notes or whatever in that triad. I'm typically spreading them out over the actual space. This is called vertical arrangement, which is where you're actually stacking the chords above each other. And this is gonna help give a little bit more of the actual pitches present that helps make it sound a little bit more interesting. But then once we get into the second half here, so we kind of introduce this whole, I'm no stranger to the dark, I'm no stranger to the dark, right? And so this is introducing an idea that, again, hey, comes in pairs, right? A lot of times ideas comes in pairs. And so again, two, lots of things comes in fours, right? So we have an idea that is 4 bars, right? It's 4 bars, and then we have another 4-bar idea, which is kind of cool, right? So we've got this no stranger to the dark, right? No stranger to the dark, right? And then it goes somewhere different. And this is also just good songwriting in general, is you don't want to just keep repeating this over and over and over again, right? And then it goes into the, I don't even know what the words are. What are the words? I don't even know the song. I don't know the lyrics to my own songs.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero.
Oh yeah, I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. So the other thing to keep in mind here is that I'm actually changing the rhythm of the melody itself in the second half of this chorus. And so we kind of have this elongated melody. I'm no stranger to the dark. That's holding that note for quite some time. But then the contrast is in the rhythm of the actual melody. I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle, right? And that makes a lot more sense to then add the drums, which then has that kind of hip hop kind of vibe to it. And this is one of the things that I love doing, is taking the melody of something and then mirroring it with the instrumental, so that the instrumental is doing something that is kind of like tipping the hat to the vocal, tipping the hat to the melody, saying, I see you, I'm gonna play along with you, right? You want it to feel like this is all meant to go together. Now, I actually filmed, by the way, this entire process of producing this song. I'll leave a link here and somewhere down in the description or whatever and at the end of this video. So you can literally see exactly how I went about producing this song from start to finish. And you would know if you watched that I actually top-lined this song. In other words, I actually produced the instrumental first and then I wrote lyrics last, but the chorus I had already written first. So I did already have a chorus. And so when we're looking at the actual instrumental and we're looking at what's happening here vocally and what's happening with the drums, really I'm taking this first part of the chorus as an opportunity to do these big hits. We're stabbing on these downbeats. We're going along with the vocal. It's all leading up to the second part of the chorus, where it really becomes a lot more about that hip hop beat when the rhythm actually changes.
Dark, I'm no stranger to the dark.
It's all leading to this.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm no stranger to the dark.
And then I'm going back to that when that returns, because it's like no stranger to the dark, no stranger to the dark, all right? And then we go somewhere different, and then no stranger to the dark. And I'm trying to make sure that the instrumental is, again, following what's happening with the lyrics. Let's just take a look at the drums here real quick, because the drums are pretty cool. I'm also hitting really hard. Oops. All right, so that's what we got for the beat. This is actually really quite simple. I've just got a nice kick happening. And you'll notice here, the only plugin on this, by the way, is the clipper. I'm just clipping it a little bit just so I can get a little bit more volume out of it. It's a little pro tip to get a little more loudness, is just clip your stuff. Way to go, Jordan from Black Salt Audio with the clipper. I love this tool. I've got my rims. I've got a clap and then like a reverse snare happening to kind of add that nice pop. Right? And then kind of helps get it to transition into that next part. We've got our hi-hats. I've got 2 hi-hats. I almost always use 2 hi-hats. One of them's pan left, one of them's pan right, and then they're usually doing something different. So this right hi-hat is just doing like tick, tick, almost like a clock. And the left one. Also, there's literally no plugins on this, by the way. Sound choice, man. Like the number of plugins you use in a track literally should not matter at all. Like all that matters is, does it sound good? And to me, this sounds good. And a lot of it is just like picking really good sounds. If you pick really good sounds, let's be honest, guys, all these sounds are already processed. Like this kick that I found, it's literally already compressed and EQ'd. So why on earth would I need to do more? And then I've got a little bit of a looper in here. Just adds a little bit of, I don't know, something, it just sounds cool. And then one of my favorite things is just to add these cymbal swells. Like cymbal swells can just make or break transitions. I did compress that because I wanted to kind of, I wanted to get a little more squeeze on that. That sounds cool. And just notice what happens if we don't have this cymbal swell, by the way. Listen.
I'm not a saint, I'm not.
It's like, it feels so empty. Just adding a cymbal swell is all we got to do.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero.
I mean, it literally makes such a big difference. It's actually crazy. And if you're wondering like where I'm getting a lot of these drum sounds from, a lot of it's like Battery 4. I'm also getting some of this. I think actually this big kick was from Devastator, like Evolution Devastator, something from Keep Forest. Keep Forest has a bunch of really good stuff. I think mixing is just like uninteresting personally. I just want to make killer music like right out of the box, so I don't want to have to rely on mixing for things to sound cool. And then finally the basses here, I'm using two separate bass sounds. I've got this one here. This is from a library called Zenith, which is from Cinematic Tools. Yeah, Sean Barnes with Cinematic Tools. I mean, it's not nothing crazy, to be honest with you. And then I added this other bass. I call this piercing bass. It just adds a little bit of complexity to the sound of the bass. And you might be noticing that they're kind of ducking. I did use some sidechain compression, and this is going to the kick. So that way, whenever the kick hits, it's kind of getting the bass out of the way. So, little trick there. If you want your kicks to stab through a little bit more, then sidechain is the way to do it. Let's actually take a look at the vocals, because I know that many of you are probably interested in like what is happening with these vocals, because the vocal production is pretty intense. Let's just start with the chorus here. The chorus vocally, and I just want to show you the processing. Like you can literally just look at my vocal chain. I literally do not care. It's totally fine with me. I'm using a little bit of EQ, some auto-tune. If you're asking why I put auto-tune after the EQ, I don't know, I just did. I'm using a 2A compressor to get some initial compression happening, just to get a little bit of squeeze, de-essing it. I'm using Effect Rack here. Effect Rack is adding this, adding Radiator and PsyQ. So Radiator is a preamp emulation. This is gonna add a little bit of that kind of more analog-y sound, I guess you could say. And then I'm also cranking a little bit of the highs and drive on PsyQ. So that's gonna help give the vocal a little bit extra punch. And then I am hitting it with an 1176. So
like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise.
some of you might want to know, what does that vocal sound like completely unprocessed? And it sounds like this.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise. Don't want to stand up and fight, so you wear your disguise. Oh.
Okay, and then on the buses here, I have Valhalla, which there's literally none of it. This is a very dry vocal at the beginning, which is a huge thing that I think is so powerful, and I think more people need to do, is automate your reverbs, because it makes them much more interesting. The next one here is Chromaverb, which, by the way, little pro tip, if you de-ess very, very hard before your room reverb, it's gonna remove all the harsh S's from it. You're welcome. And then finally, I have another one here, and this is using Decapitator. So this is adding some parallel distortion, which is where the grit of the vocal is happening. So in here, there's a handful of really cool things that are happening. The very first is that right away, it's just the lead vocal, but I am using some vocal throws in here. So this one right here is a vocal throw that's a delay. So listen.
Like a thief in the night, you try to take me by surprise.
And I am panning this, which I guess you could just use a ping pong reverb, decay? What the frick am I talking about? You could just use like a ping pong delay on this. I don't know, I just didn't. So anyway, all I'm doing is just duplicating this audio over here and then throwing it into some comeback kid, which again, you could actually put this on ping pong, which would do it for you. I didn't. I don't know why I didn't do that. That's, next time maybe. And then I used a little bit of Valhalla afterwards, so that way the reverb was affecting the delay. And I am automating the panning on this, so that way it's kind of like which is really kind of cool.
Eyes don't want to stand up and fight, so you wear your disguise.
So there's some really cool things happening here. The first is I'm using a little bit of a reverb throw in here.
So you wear your disguise. Oh, it makes me.
Yeah, so I'm just taking that So You Wear Your Disguise and putting it through a ton of reverb. I believe I'm just using like a cathedral reverb. It's really subtle. Like honestly, if it wasn't there, it would probably still sound cool, but you know, it is, so it's whatever. And then I also duplicated the audio again, and then I threw some little altar boy on it. And this is what's giving us that kind of monster sound. And so I'm just pitch shifting it down an octave and then lowering the formant and then driving the freaking crap out of it.
So you wear your disguise. Oh.
Heck yeah, this is what it sounds like by itself. Bro, that's dope. And then I am just doubling these and then doing high octaves, which sounds like this.
So you wear your disguise, oh, it makes me cynical.
Heck yeah. So these are actually performed this way, so you're never gonna actually duplicate the audio. If you're doing that, oh my gosh, don't do that. That's a huge mistake, don't do it, don't do it. You'll have all sorts of phase problems. It literally won't even work. Unless you're formant shifting it, which I guess you could do, but don't do that. Just re-record the vocals and then try to perform them as closely to the lead vocal as possible, and that is how you get it sounding like this. And then you pan these, pan them, turn them down, make them as loud or whatever as you want, and then they sound legit. And then once we get in the chorus, it's pretty much the same thing, like just the same approach here. I'm using just like a lead vocal, 2 doubles, 2 octaves, and then that's literally it.
I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm no stranger to the.
Now, when I was talking about automating the reverbs, this is also where we do this. So as you can hear at the beginning here in this first verse, the vocals are really dry. And this is one of those things I think you should really think about when you're actually working on producing music, is thinking through, how do I want my vocal to be sounding in terms of space at every moment in the song? I really thought that it'd be cool to make the vocals sound super dry, which also makes them sound very close to your face at the very beginning, and then pushing them back a little bit in the chorus by adding more reverb. And so I'm doing this by automating the reverbs in here. So you can see here, this is my Valhalla, which is the big reverb. You can see how I'm pushing it up here, and I'm also even automating it within the actual chorus itself. Watch.
I'm no stranger to the dark.
So every time there's that cutoff, I'm even cutting off the reverb. Because if you don't cut off the reverb, then the tail of that kind of just goes out and it doesn't really sound as convincing to me. So that's why I did it. And you can see I pushed it up even more once I get into this whole like hero villain thing. Same.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm no stranger to the.
And then I also have another delay in here. This is a 16th note delay, so a very fast delay. And yeah, just adding a little bit of space. And that's literally, I mean, that's pretty much it. And then I think the other thing is I am actually pushing just a little bit on my parallel distortion. And that's just giving the vocals a bit extra sizzle and crunch on them. And then verse 2 is when we have the doubles and octaves the entire time. So unlike verse 1, which again, you might be catching a theme here. Contrast, contrast, contrast. How can you do things different, even in the vocal production, even in the vocal arrangement? Hey, I have only lead vocal here at the first 4. Hey, cool, next time we do it, let's do all the vocals together.
You wear your face like a mask. Looks like you're running from your past.
I mean, just think about how, oh my gosh, like, think about how different that sounds.
You wear your face like a mask. Looks like you're running from your past.
It just sounds so empty to me. It's like the instrumental is empty. And I think it sounds so cool that the instrumental is really sparse and empty here, but then you also have like all these other vocals. It sounds so cool.
You wear your face like a mask.
Adds so much energy.
Looks like you're running from your past. You try to hide in plain sight. What gives you the right? Try to hide your past life. You better run and hide. Oh, I've been fighting on the right side.
I love this too, because I go, oh, I've been fighting on the right side. You notice how those are elongated? Think about this. Whenever you have an elongated thing, you have like rhythm, 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 elongated, rhythm, rhythm, elongated. Those are such good opportunities to do something interesting with your vocals, which is why.
Oh, right side. Knowing the sidelines. A picture.
Probably could have tuned those a little better, but you know, it's fine. Like, try to find all these different opportunities to do things like this, where the instrumental is great, right? The instrumental is working really well, but then how do we make it so that the vocals are even more of that, like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool moments, right? Okay, and then that takes us to the next chorus. And remember how I was saying that I want all of my choruses to sound different. So how am I gonna make this one sound different? Well, I can tell you right now, it's actually not really in the instrumental. The instrumental is almost identical. just a little bit more. I think I actually added like the pizzicato strings in here. And then the kick drum, this like filtered kick is like boom, 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 bum, 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 right? So it's kind of hitting with it a little bit more. So there is a little bit more happening with the drums. It's very subtle. It's not super noticeable. Like the average person's certainly not going to hear that. But what the difference is it's the vocals. Like listen to okay, let's just do this. Let's go back to chorus 1 and I'm going to show you what chorus 1 sounds like and then I'll show you chorus 2 so you can just hear how much different this is.
I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm no stranger to the.
All right, let's go to the second chorus.
But I get my hands in the dirt. I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero.
The difference is enormous. The difference, I just love it so much. Okay, so there's way more, I mean, look at this. Look at 1, 2, 3, how many tracks of vocals do we have in here? Like a lot. So I split this out to I'm no stranger to the, and then dark, right? So I pretty much just split this out into I'm no stranger to the, and then dark was its own. Why? Why did I want to do that? Well, because I wanted them to overlap, like you can see here.
I'm no stranger to the.
I want them to overlap, and the only way you can do that is by having new tracks, which obviously is kind of a headache to do, but it's also legit. Okay, so why does this sound so good? Well, part of it is like, the first time you hear it's like, I'm no stranger to the dark, and then the second time you get this chorus, I'm actually emphasizing the higher octave. I'm no stranger to the dark. I want more energy. It needs to punch you in the face. So there's a lot more emphasis on the actual volumes. We're just literally talking about the fader here and emphasizing that higher octave, which adds so much energy to this.
I'm no stranger to the.
It's almost like screaming it, right? Let's just listen to these vocals just by themselves here.
I'm no stranger to the.
I mean, that's awesome. And then the same thing on the upper ones.
I'm no stranger to the dark. I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm no stranger to the.
Do you also notice the harmonies here? I mean, this is like all like 3-part harmony, which I'm not going to get into all of that. Like, how did you do that? It's probably not really something I'm going to get into here. But I'm using the chords to do it. But I'm expanding out the vocals here. There's way more vocals. They're way more energetic. They're higher. I'm emphasizing the higher octave with the vocals. And so again, I want this to be so clear. When you're working on music, like how can I make things different? And again, I tend to be, and I want to be very clear about this. I tend to be very big. I tend to be very like, I want the differences to like seriously punch you in the face. So you're like, holy crap, that's wild, you know? And that's like a staple of my music specifically. You don't need to be going like intense, crazy like this. You could be trying to apply it in however it works best in the context of what you are creating. But this is yet again, a difference between every single thing. Like I don't want there to be a single time you hear something where it's not somehow different in a way that makes it more interesting, okay? All right, let's actually talk about the bridge because the bridge is also pretty legit. Actually, one thing I want to show you here real quick is how, actually, one thing I do differently in the instrumental here is this very ending part, I did a little bit extra with the piano. How can I make it different? I feel like I should have like a banner behind me. How could it be different? And that takes us into the bridge. And the bridge is like a low point, right? This is the valley of the song. I'm really bringing it down. And so just look at the song, for crying out loud. Look at the song, okay? Look at it, look at it, look at it. Okay, we've got verse 1, right? Soft for the first 4 bars. Then we got some hits. We were building up. And then we go big, big, big. And then verse 2 is like soft again. And then the second half of verse 2 is it's getting somewhere big. And then chorus 2 is it's really big, right? The vocals are in your face, they're higher, there's way more of them. And then we come back to the bridge, and the bridge, what does the bridge do? It brings it back down again. But what's the bridge gonna do? It's gonna punch you in the freaking face again, okay? All right, let's just listen to this bridge.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fell somewhere in the middle.
By the way, this is taking from the chorus. This is another little songwriting hack, if you want to call it that you can do, is take elements that have already been heard before and then repeat them and then recontextualize them. You've already heard this line of me saying, I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero, I fell somewhere in the middle, right? But you've only heard that part. And then where do I go from there, right? And then that's where it gets interesting in the bridge.
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero, I fell somewhere in the middle. I'm not a villain, I'm not evil, but that's the funny thing with morals.
Here we go.
Maybe I've just lost my mind. Maybe I've just crossed the line. I'm no stranger to the...
Oh gosh. Oh, this was so much fun to do. Okay, we start really soft, right? And it's like romantic. It's almost like funny. I don't know. There was something like ironic about it. I don't know why, but there was something that felt a little ironic, like this, like almost like it's a waltz, right? Like you've got the pizzicato strings doing this like thing here. I love it. And then you've got that with the piano here, right? I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle, right? But then, what do I do? What do I do? We start adding in some of these like creepy things. Here we go. It's like Full Sail just went bonkers. All right, let's just listen to the instrumental here. Booyah. Okay, so really what I'm actually doing here is I'm pulling from what we've already heard in the chorus. We've already heard these like big block chords, right? We've already heard this. And so why would I go and try to reinvent the wheel and do something completely different in this moment and just almost like overcomplicate it when I could do something that we've already heard, but because the context and the vocals are doing something different, I can go with these ba, ba, like big, just like almost like big organ and strings. It's all the same sounds that we're hearing as we've heard in the chorus, but then we're hearing it in a slightly different way. Like they're held out longer for twice as long. And then they're not like cutting off quite in the same way. And then we've got the big bass hitting with it. We've got some of the trailer drums just kind of like emphasizing some things. But then really it allows this piano arpeggio to like stand out, which is like obviously crazy. That was fun to record. If you want to watch me ripping my hair out recording that, you can watch the video where I actually produced this.
And this is me just doing it over and over and over and over and over again, just constantly messing up.
No! But then really it's like all about these vocals. Like we just went from like a single vocal to now just like, I don't even know how many vocals. This is a lot of vocals. Let's listen to this.
Baby, I've just lost my mind. Maybe I've just crossed the line.
Pulling a Bohemian Rhapsody or something like that. I don't know. It was fun. So by the way, like I'm like almost screaming when I sing this, which I don't condone because my voice was hurting for days. But you do what you have to do for the song. It needed that. It needed that because I was losing my freaking mind. Anyway, put the context.
Maybe I've just lost my mind. Maybe I've just crossed the line. I'm no stranger to the...
Okay, final chorus here. And I know some of you are like, what is that bass thing that you're doing? That's this right here. Heck. Freaking yeah. So I actually just took one of these bass notes. I think I might have even literally taken like, I don't know. I took one of the bass notes or something and then I bounced it to audio and then I slowed it down. So it's actually slowing down. I'm going to turn all these effects off so you can just hear it sound like raw. That's what it sounded like, completely raw. And then next thing I did was use Tremolator. This is a tremolo tool and I'm setting this to a 30-second note and I think I actually might have even automated it. Did I automate it? Did I automate it? No, but I automated the panning. The panning's, you know, whatever. Here's with the tremolo. That's the majority of it. And then I just boosted it with some gain, and then I'm clipping it because I want it to be really, really loud. Yeah, Even with the clipping, it's still kind of coming a little hot. Shh, don't tell anyone, it's fine. And then the final chorus. Do you remember what I said about making things unique and different? Huh, okay, yeah.
I'm no stranger to the time. I'm no stranger to the time.
All right, I'm gonna see if you can figure out what was different about that time. Okay, so there's actually multiple things, but the main thing is that every single other chorus starts like this. Compared to the last chorus. I waited till the final chorus to add the full beat the entire span of the chorus. And so again, it's like these are subtle things that actually matter. Like if I had the whole beat, every single chorus, you just heard that full beat the entire time, it would just take something away from that final chorus. And so by waiting till the end to actually give it to you full state, like to just like actually give it to you, by waiting, it makes it so much more interesting, in my opinion. My opinion, maybe you disagree, that's fine. And then the other thing, and the instrumental is actually pretty much the same. I believe I probably copy pasted, not gonna lie, which I don't usually do, but stuff like this, I'll copy paste stuff like this. If it's just literally chords, it's gonna sound exactly the same regardless of whatever I do. I sometimes copy paste those. I can't remember if I did or not. And then the piano is a little bit different. And then the last thing is the chorus. I just added like one extra thing in here. Yeah, so I added these.
I'm no stranger to the.
And that was me trying to sing that high octave without going falsetto, and then distorting it, and then I have another one that's using that little altar boy effect on it to kind of make it sound a little monstery, and then I'm distorting it, you know, because it just adds like a little extra juice. In fact, I'm gonna show what it sounds like without it, right? Here's without it.
I'm no stranger to the time.
It's too clean, and then you add it at the end.
I'm no stranger to the time.
Like, come on, guys. Sometimes it's literally something like that. Like, you just add like one little thing, it's like, boom, that's exactly what it needed. Okay, and then the last thing is that at the very end here, I decided to not resolve it because why?
I'm not a saint, I'm not a hero. I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm no stranger to the time. I'm no stranger to the.
And the reason I didn't is because dark. I'm no stranger to the dark, and then it goes to black. Heyo. So hey, if you want me to show you more breakdowns like this with my music, just let me know. I'd be happy to continue doing this as a series. This was a long video. Thanks for hanging out with me. By the way, if you want to just learn more in-depth principles to everything that I'm talking about in this video, then you should definitely join Producer Accelerator, because that's where I actually teach the principles behind all of this and like how I'm doing what I'm doing, like the choice making and the decision making in the actual process. And also, more importantly, you can get actual feedback from me and my team, because that is one of the most valuable things that you could get in your own music if you want to make better music. So we're actually in the middle of doing our huge launch of Producer Accelerator 2.0. So if you want to join right now, we're doing a huge discount. You can use this code right here and get the entire lifetime access to Producer Accelerator for the cost of only 1 year. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.